up?
Same injury. I'm not saying I had the same injury, but Dr. Joe Jaime over at Shift Movement, he's like, dude, you have to stretch out certain parts of your body as you get older. And what people fail to do is they fail to do the stretching of the foot and the calf and the ankle area. And everything gets wound tight. All right. And depending on how you walk and the shoes you have, and you could have shoes it on the soleus and all these different injuries. And what I have done is I now do sitting calf raises, standing calf raises. I do these stretches and stuff. And my foot, it's not perfect, but it's so much better than it was a year or two ago. I am 100% sure that McCaffrey has some of the best doctors on the planet that are giving him a million different stretching exercises, and they're working it out like no other. They did this thing with this metal thing where they massage with this blade type of a thing. I mean, it's painful, but it feels great. And then you do the cupping, and you'll get better eventually.
So what was it? What was the injury? Fat Top said
I never heard of that one.
I never heard of that one either. You said he was a fat cop. I don't know why I like saying the word fat so much. But Fat Top was talking about some injury there and how he fell out. And I wonder, did it have anything to do with the Achilles tendon? Because that thing could go. 888-957-9570. Should our concern level, if we did the panic meter, right? We always had the panic meter during Warrior season. Where's your panic level at when it comes to Christian McCaffrey? Where's the panic at? Because I know you when we saw the calf early in the training camp, we said, okay, it's going to be off for 2 weeks, but the Niners played it well. They said, hey, look, if there's a game on Sunday, he could play. And I was going by their word. But then last week, all of a sudden the Achilles gets popped up on the injury report. And it's like, wait a minute, I thought it was just a calf strain. So now it's the Achilles, and he misses Monday Night Football. And he's doubtful to play Minnesota. I'm going to just say he's out against Minnesota. Go ahead,
it was gastrocnemius was what he was saying, which is a muscle, a complex muscle at that is fundamental for walking and posture. So it's all around your, if you can imagine your calf, there's this huge, that whole muscle right there. Yeah. I think that's the proper name, the gastrocnemius.
Interesting.
Gastrocnemius.
Well, the more you know.
The more you know. Man, this would be right up my old co-host's alley right here, man. The injury, the medical hour, baby. This is what we're talking about.
He's going to have the prosthetic foot, and he's going to start explaining it.
Rest in peace to Dr. Elliot Schwartz, because we would have him on, and he may be the slowest guy ever. He had one line, hey, Bate, I'm Dr. Elliot Schwartz. I'm in Tennessee. And then he goes off and spills. You know how Lubbock runs down the hallways and we can hear him running? We're like, what is that, an earthquake? We had Dr. Elliot Schwartz on one time. Rest in peace. God rest his soul to the Schwartz family. Loved him. Great guy for the station. Always fun. Represented was the A's team doctor. But he was on one time. In the interview, it wasn't, he was a little slow. He wasn't long-winded. The Hegan was sprinting down the hallway at the old building, 55 Hawthorne. Who is this on the air? You're losing your listeners by the second. He's sprinting he had nothing. Lubbock's got nothing under the Hegan run when we had Dr. Elliot Schwartz on. Rest in peace, Dr. Elliot Schwartz.
Seriously. 650 is saying to Fat, was it Fat Top?
Fat
was
Top,
the name of the cop?
He said, Fat Top.
Did he log a 400 donut season last year? And is that why he's having, was he on the cover of the new GTA? It's the GTA curse.
400 glazed with some sprinkles.
Yeah. No, you're asking about McCaffrey.
That's
and you
not
know
right.
I love the police officers.
It's a fancy way of saying calf muscles.
No, but the thing that I've learned about the foot, and again, I'm not pretending like I know what's going on. Everyone's different, but how your foot is shaped, how you walk, how much pressure you're putting. Are you a toe walker? Are you a heel walker? Do you drive in? All of these things matter when we're talking about all those muscles in the lower body. And to your point about their hip, Dr. Joe taught me that there's a muscle that goes all the way up through the leg, through the hips. So if you're not opening up your hips, everything gets tight, and it's all interconnected. I mean, we've learned this. You hurt your tooth, next thing you know, you got a sinus headache or something, Everything's connected. CMC, the big question is very simple to me. What's the risk? What's the reward? We all agree. Boy, he's one of the greatest players in the league. And you got to have him if you want to win a Super Bowl. It feels like, right? To me, there's no guarantee that if he comes back in 7 weeks, that he's all of a sudden magically not going to get re-injured or re-aggravate this thing. I understand that. But the risk isn't worth the reward. So if you ask me, hey, Joe, would you roll the dice and just put him on IR and just bite your lip and say, get right as best you can, and we'll just go from there 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks down the road? Or would you play this week to week? I would probably throw him on IR and just say, get yourself right. Don't try to like rush coming back, because if he gets hurt quicker, his season's probably lost.
Well, here's the deal though with that, and there's gamesmanship in play now. When you come out with these injury reports and you want to give a team, you want to at least make that team spend some time prepping for CMC. He goes on the IR, like, look, CMC ain't playing, so we don't have to worry about this, right? It's probably a small, minuscule thing. It is. But I think the Niners are playing the gamesmanship role, said, hey, he could play next week. He may not play next week. Just to put it in the opponent's mind and say, we got to worry about CMC, Debo, Ayuk, blah, 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 blah. And maybe that changes some things here. I'm not saying it makes it harder for the other team to prep, but you want to play the gamesmanship and just put it in their minds like 23 could play. There's a possibility. But Dr. Feely was talking about this injury. Does it compare to Dre Greenlaw and what he dealt with last postseason with the knee Achilles tendonitis, which ended up going in the Super Bowl? Here's Dr. Feely.
So there's no proof that this is a precursor to something serious. So when you look at the literature, does Achilles tendonitis lead to an Achilles tendon rupture? There's no proof for that. The problem is in the literature means you're looking at the average normal person with Achilles tendonitis and Achilles tendinopathy. We're not talking about people that are 7 feet tall and jump for a living, or 6'1", 195 pounds and run through a defensive line. So I think in general, we can assume that it's low risk that he's going to get a more serious injury, but we can't rule it out just because the demands on the professional athlete at this level are so much higher than what we typically understand for everyday people.
So how should the Niners handle McCaffrey's workload moving forward? Here's Dr. Feely with Willard and Dibs.
I think when you look at his usage rate last year, he was 18 to 22 touches a game, maybe up to 25. 28 carries for Jordan Mason was the most a Kyle Shanahan player has ever had in a game. So ideally, you have him in the 15 to 20, and I think that's totally reasonable. I think the other nice thing is as soon as you put him out there, even if he's not the first, second, or third option, he's a decoy because he's so good. So I think once he gets out there, he will play. I think the athletic training staff and the medical staff is doing everything right. You take it slow with him now, especially if you're going to win a couple games with his backup. It's a long season. It's hopefully is another season that goes well into February. You want him fresh and you want him feeling as good as possible. And we know all these players don't feel 100% by the end of the year. So you want to conserve him as much as possible for the second half of the year and into the playoffs.
What do you gather out of that, Shasky?
Well, I think his point is a really good one. When you're looking at data, they're talking to like, the warehouse worker and the USPS mailman who's walking around every single day, talking about like, does this lead to an Achilles rupture? Well, that individual's not exploding and trying to run through a 350-pound defensive tackle. It's low risk, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have. There's just, you never know. It's the body. It's the human body. And I think as a Bay Area sports fan, it's impossible to not have PTSD regarding Kevin Durant and Dre Greenlaw, knowing what we know now.
Yep.
And knowing how delicate these things can be.
No.
So
was Crabtree Achilles or was he fibula?
No, he had the Achilles.
He had the Achilles, right?
But his was training in the offseason.
Right.
But
OCAs.
But let's not forget, it was the same foot where he had the broken foot early on. Okay, and this is why I go back to like everything's connected.
He wasn't right too.
No, he had the stress fracture on the foot, which led to him dropping in the draft, and why he wasn't available for the Niners. And then a couple of years later, same leg ended up exploding on him. So I'm not. Are you surprised by that?
No, I'm not surprised by that. I'm not surprised by that at all. Again, I drove in today, Roasters, 888-957-9570. I've already, in my mind, I'm looking at week 2 against Minnesota, and I'm looking at the rest of the 2024 season, and I'm saying to myself, whatever number 23 Christian McCaffrey gives me is a bonus. I'm not expecting much from Christian McCaffrey this season with this injury. It's not good. It's just not good. And I'm not trying to be worried, but we watched Kevin Durant, and he took, basically that injury happened Game 5 against the Houston Rockets. And that's a calf strain. He's going to be out 3 weeks, so he misses the entire Western Conference Finals. He misses the first 4 games of the NBA Finals. And when he was warming up, because, some people snuck into Scotiabank Arena or we leaguing around watching him warm up by himself, and security looked up and said, hey, hey, hey. Cats are running out of the gym. I'm not going to name names, but that's when you got.
He was in the tunnel doing river
you?
dance.
Yeah.
He looked incredible.
No, he looked awesome. But I remember how surreal it was to watch him. And then that first quarter happened. I'm like, boy, wait, he's handling the ball too much, man. He's not moving great. He's out there great. He's got the great shot, but he's bringing the ball up 94 feet, and Pascal Siakam is full court pressing him. And it went, and you knew right away. It's like, damn.
I know.
Damn. And so, yes, PTSD from the Achilles, that's one injury you just don't mess around with.
No.
That is right there. It's worse than hamstring. It's worse than, this is bad.
No,
This is bad. So in my mind, I've already put Christian McCaffrey to the side. I'm saying I have enough offensively to compete with the Eagles, to compete with the Lions. Is McCaffrey a big-time loss? Absolutely. He's the offensive player of the year. Could have been the MVP of the league. He's on the cover of Madden, right? Which Madden curse. I know everybody's going to bring that up. But I'm moving on for this year. If Christian McCaffrey gives me anything, great. Awesome. But I'm moving forward thinking that this might be a lost year with CMC.
There's been times where injuries have happened in Bay Area sports, and not that it's a blessing in disguise, but it opens up opportunities for others, right? Are the Giants better without Matt Cain? No, but he had shreds of bone stuff in his elbow, and he had to miss almost the entire 2014 season.
Yep.
Now, they went on to win the World Series,
Yep.
all right? There's been times where I think about like the Golden State Warriors. David Lee gets injured, and that opens things up for Draymond Green.
Right.
So this is a great opportunity for Jordan Mason and other guys.
I think Isaac Guerrero, this rookie, you got to get ready to roll because we know Shanahan's not afraid to play rookies. He's not afraid. He don't care where you were drafted at. If you can play, you can play. So I would say Isaac Guerrero, get your groin right, get your hamstring right, get ready to roll. You may have to get a few carries. He got 3 snaps last week. You know damn well they're not going to give Jordan Mason 28 carries against Minnesota on the short week. So Isaac Guerrero, Patrick Taylor Jr., Deebo Samuel, be ready to roll out the backfield.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Deebo. So they went with this formation, and I drew it on paper. This formation where, like, the running back, back in the day, the pro set would have the fullback on the one side of the quarterback and then the running back on the other. That was the old Bill Walsh, West Coast offense, pro set. They had him offset. They handed him off the ball, Deebo Samuel that was, almost every time from this single back formation. I think they're setting things up, moving forward. They gave just enough on tape to be able to get those isolation plays where Deebo's in the backfield as a quote-unquote running back so that he can line up against those linebackers and safeties in the way that CMC did. And I know everyone lost their mind because it was week 1. I don't want to see Deebo between the tackles. I think you have to do it just enough to create advantages in the passing game for Deebo out of the backfield. And now that gives me an opportunity as I look at a 3 wide receiver set here to get a Jacob Cowings on the field, to get a Ricky Pearsall on the field as a true wide receiver. I think that they're going to have to showcase the creativity of Kyle Shanahan. This is where, Kyle, you're making $20 million a year. Now's the time, my friend.
This is on Kyle, and this is on Brock Purdy. This is on Kyle, and this is on Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is better, and you have the right quarterback for this situation to keep these guys rolling. 888-957-9570. The concern level about Christian McCaffrey as this segment was sponsored by Golden State Lumber. Serving the Bay Area for 3 generations. When you succeed, we succeed. Visit GoldenStateLumber.com. You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM in the Nation San Francisco, an Odyssey Sports Station, always live on the free Odyssey app. Dr. Feely, what's the impact on playing on turf? The Niners have 4 turf games this year. Back-to-back weeks, US Bank Stadium, Minnesota, and, of course, SoFi next week against the LA Rams. Later on in the season, who's the other turf team? Seattle. And there is Buffalo. They have turf as well. They'll be on the field tomorrow against Miami. That'll be a good game on Thursday Night Football. But here's Dr. Feely on the impact of playing on turf.
The lower extremity injury rate is higher on turf than it is on grass. And if I'm playing on turf next week, early in the season, I'm probably going to be a little bit extra conservative because I think it is a little bit riskier and it hurts a little bit more. Grass is softer.
How can this be something that's been bothering McCaffrey? Here's Dr. Feely with Willard or Dibs.
So the problem with any of the tendinopathies in the lower extremity, whether it's your quad tendonitis, patellar tendonitis, or Achilles tendonitis is once it's there, it tends to just kind of linger, often up to 1 to 2 years. The reality is it does not seem to increase your risk of a traumatic injury. So it doesn't seem to increase the risk of getting an Achilles tendon rupture, which is really what you want to avoid. But it does make it annoying to play on. You cannot plant and push off quite as hard. You don't have quite the amount of explosive ability. Problem is there isn't a magic cure for it. It's not like you wear special shoes. There's no special injection. You essentially just have to do the stretching, the conditioning, and work your way through it. And if he's not feeling perfect, you hold him out.
Man, that's brutal.
For the everyday person, there is an entire cottage industry of insoles that they try to sell you. This will fix your tendonitis. This will fix your plantar fasciitis. And although it might help a little, there's no cure. The cure is physical therapy and working on it and literally massaging it out and stretching it out.
925 Xfinity Mobile text line. I got Achilles tendonitis a few years ago after running a half marathon, and it still bothers me till this day if I run or walk a lot. And you heard Dr. Feely there, that explosion, the planning and exploding off of that.
And then the turf aspect.
And so the turf aspect, they only have 4 turf games. Now the Super Bowl, the Saints, what do they have? That next turf, whatever it is. That's a long way away. But but they have 4 turf games. So I'm anticipating McCaffrey not playing our turf at all, even on that short week in Seattle, Thursday Night Football. And it's just the planning. He can't explode. That's his game.
I think everyone who's a 49er fan just has to be patient with this.
Yeah.
And I understand the risk is you miss out on the number 1 seed. The risk is you make the path to a Super Bowl more difficult. The risk is Jordan Mason isn't as good in 4 weeks, 5 weeks. I mean, how can you top 170 yards in a game? But my point, the risk is your team offensively is not even close to what it was the last couple of years.
No.
But the other side of that risk is you bring him back, he gets hurt, you're probably losing him for the year.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So, Niner fans, can they do big things? Are they still favorites in your minds without Christian McCaffrey? 888-957-9570. I see a lot of Pivot Don't Panic posts on YouTube. Pivot Don't Panic. You got J.P. Mason. Get Garendo some touches. Patrick Taylor Jr., get him some touches. It's a big blow. But can they overcome this blow? I think they can. Let's go to Phil.